Thank you so much, Mark. It's great to be with everyone. And thank you to Adi as well, who's managing the tech. Also thank Ruth Several for her dedication in memory of her mother. And I'd like to mention that I'd like to dedicate this as well to the memory of my mother, who died this summer and would have been 94 this past Friday. So let's begin with a little quieting, the settling of our mind, our heart, our soul, with just a few deep breaths to settle into our places. Feel free to close your eyes if you like. Tomorrow is the winter solstice, the shortest day, the most darkness. Rabbi Mark recently led a meditation on darkness and mentioned the phrase, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." I took it out of context, although I did listen many times to the beautiful Simon and Garfunkel song, but I took it out of context and offer today that perhaps we can look at darkness as our friend who has come to talk with us again. Alden Salovey also shares a few words about darkness. I'll read the full poem later, but selections are: cold and dark, night overtakes day, frigid air settles over the earth, the land waits while your creatures rest. God of time and space, may this season be a blessing and a teacher. Make me like the long, deep night, a blanket of solace and comfort. Take those words into a few moments of quiet before we begin our text. So Adi, if you could put the text up on the screen. This week, we begin the book of Exodus. Our first portion is Shemot. Last Friday, our new teacher, Oded, said, every ending is equal to a beginning. The beginning of Exodus actually connects us to Genesis. Even the words do this. Ve'ele shmot b'nei Yisrael. And these are the names of the children of Israel. Our teacher, Rabbi Aaron, says, quote, the pace of this week's portion is staggering. And I totally agree with her. This book moves us from a family to a people. We read of bondage, death sentences for baby boys, the righteous midwives, the birth of Moses, the righteous Pharaoh's daughter. We read of Moses's encounter with Yud-He Vav-He at the burning bush. And we read of Moses's fear and self-doubt. So I chose a few verses later for today, talking about fear and self-doubt. let's see what the text says. So Exodus 4, verses 15 through 16 and 17. I myself will be with your mouth and with his, Aaron's mouth, and I will instruct you both what you should do. And he will speak for you. Aaron will speak for you to the people, and so he will be a mouth for you, and you will be before him like a god. Ve'et hamateh hazeh, and this staff, tikach biyadecha, you shall take in your hand, asher ta'aseh bo et ha'otot, with which you will do the signs. So I remember this idea of a staff because it was suggested to bring the concept to my Passover Seder many years ago of something that came down through the family. And so I found this agadic, this midrash on the staff from the Yalkut Shimoni, which you see on your scroll, on the screen. And I thought that the idea of all these people that came before, let me read a little bit. And you shall take thy hand, this rod, the rod that was created at twilight on creation's sixth day, was handed to Adam in the Garden of Eden. Adam handed it to Enoch, Enoch to Shem, Shem to Abraham, etc., etc. And then it comes down to Moses. And then perhaps it continues. So I invite you, many of you will have a staff that you have something that's special, that will be your signs and your connection to God, something that can help you feel God's presence and help you walk with God. So consider what your mateh might be. And then I have one more text to share. Dee, if you could go to the page with the psalm on it. As many of you know, I have been studying the book of Psalms with my Chevruta partner, and we read Rabbi Levi's translation. And so each time, as Mark mentioned, that I come to a new book of the Torah, I come to a new book of Psalms. And so for today, I have Psalm 63, which has a beautiful melody. And I learned this melody from Rabbi Hannah Dresner, who's actually on this call. I'm so grateful she could be with us. And she taught this in the podcast that Rabbi Slater had for many months. And the link to the podcast is on my study sheet. Kain Bakodesh, Chaziticha, the vision, Chaza, visions, Liorot Uzcha Uchvodecha. And then the other selection from the verse 2, Tsama Lecha Nafshi, Kama Lecha Visari. It's a Hasidic dvekus nigun, trying to draw us close to God. And so as you consider how to draw closer to God, I will be chanting this as we move into our quiet. So, Adi, you can remove the text. I will read the English. Yes, in holy places I have had visions of you, looking upon your power and your glory. The life breath in me thirsts for you. The flesh of me grows faint for you. And so as we settle into our seats, closing our eyes perhaps, gazing gently if you rather not close your eyes, have your posture be alert and relaxed. Take your sign, your staff, your mateh, your holy object with you into your silence, your quiet. Remember, you can always come back to the breathing, to your mateh. Our silence will begin and end with the chanting of Psalm 63. This will be the opening, the pticha, and the seal, the chatima of our meditation. We'll sit quietly for 10 minutes. Kodesh, זיתיך לראות עוזך וכבודך כן בקודש חזיתיך לראות עוזך וכבודך צמא, 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 צמא לך נפשי. כמה, 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 כמה לך בשרי. Kin bakodesh chaziti chalirot uzcha uchvodecha. Kin bakodesh chaziti chalirot uzcha uchodecha. Sama, tsama, 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 tsama lecha nafshi. Kama, 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 kama lecha pesari. I'd like to close with this beautiful poem by Alden Salovey from The Grateful Heart called For Winter. It's on the sheet, Adi, if you'd like to put it up, or people can just listen. Cold and dark, night overtakes day. Frigid air settles over the earth. The land waits while your creatures rest. Then a shift, small, imperceptible. The days slowly lengthen and mornings surrender to light. Bless this day, God of seasons. Bless the winter with rest, renewal, and love. Be present with us as we prepare for another cycle of seasons with dignity and purpose. God of time and space, may this be a season of blessing and a teacher. Make me like the long, deep night, a blanket of solace and comfort. Make me like the returning sun, a source of quiet hope. Bless my days with service and my nights with warmth. Make me like a new day, dawning from the darkness. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Louise, leading us so beautifully again today. Friends, we seal our practice, offering an opportunity for those in mourning, observing yard sites, or if it's your custom to participate in the Kaddish, to do so and to add the name or names of anyone whose memory you're honoring today in the chat box, either now or after you recite Kaddish. And for those who are not, we're inviting you to extend your practice by staying present, offering support for those who are invited to join me by rising in body or in spirit for Kaddish to end our practice together. Yitgadal Yitadash Shemei Rabbah. Yalma Divrach Yivite Yamlich Malchute. V'chayechon Yamechon Uvchaye B'chol Beit Yisrael. V'agala U'izman Karim Imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei
Shmei
Rabba
Rabba
Yivarach
Barach
Yalam U'Amen U'Maya.
Yeah.
Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitfa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yithaval Shemei D'Kudusha B'Rechu
Brechu.
La'ela Min Yechada Tushbechata V'nechamata Ta'amirana Ama V'Imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'Al Yisrael V'Imru Amen.
Amen.
Yoseh Shalom B'Mamav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Yisrael V'Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Imru.
Amen.
And we want to thank our teacher for today, Cantor Louise Treitman, again for leading us so beautifully. We thank our sponsor for today, Ruth Several, who sponsored our practice in loving memory of her mother, Esther Bat Eliyahu Vabasia, on the occasion of her yahrzeit. Zichronav Lebracha, may her memory be for our blessing. And with thanks as well, of course, as always, to Adi Stein for holding our tech space together so beautifully with skill and with grace. And most of all, thanks to all of you for joining us. And if you have to leave us now, we invite you to come back tomorrow. We'll be led in practice tomorrow by Cantor Kareth Spencer Shapiro, and on Wednesday by Rabbi George Gittleman, each of whom will bring some California warmth and sunshine to our lives for the winter solstice. And then again, just a reminder that we'll be on hiatus starting this Thursday through next week, and then back again after the New Year's. So we hope to see you soon. And for those who are staying on, if you have a question you'd like to put to Louise or a reflection on the teaching today, you're invited to do that in the chat box. So try to keep an eye on that. And again, Louise, thank you so much. Just beautiful. And I really felt, I don't know if I was speaking for myself, I felt really so, it was a very deep, these are always short meditations. And sometimes it's just really easy to drop into it. And I wanted to thank you for guiding us so beautifully into that meditative state. And I wanted to ask you to say a little bit more, if you would, about the connection between the psalm, and that part of the parsha, if you have more to say about that. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because it was, just speaking for myself, it wasn't quite as clear. So maybe you can help me out with it. Not that it mattered, but in the moment, but I'd be curious to hear more.
So last year when I spoke about Shemot, I talked about the burning bush and meeting God, in the wilderness. And I decided this year I really wanted to find another place of the parsha to connect with. So I actually listened as well as read Robert Alter's translation of the Bible, and this line just jumped out at me: the idea of having a mateh, of having a staff. Mm-hmm. Now, the context is that the staff, as you know, Mark, the staff then becomes a snake, and it brings these signs to the community to sort of prove that God is God is with the Israelite people and the power. So I took it out of context. I took the mateh as a sign for God's presence. Mm-hmm. And then when I found the Yalkut Shimoni Midrash, I thought, well, that is just perfect, because in fact, that Midrash had been shared with me probably 10 or more years ago as a way to bring depth to a Seder. My friend and colleague, Rabbi Mark Shapiro, of blessed memory, from Springfield, Massachusetts, he sent out a note to his congregants, and my sister-in-law's in the congregation. He said, why don't you ask your guests to bring something? He quoted the Yalkut Shimoni, because I recognized it all. I said, and he said, this has been passed down from creation down through all these people to Moses, and then passed down, continuing to pass down. And I'm sure that you have things in your family that have been passed down. So bring something to the Seder that was passed down from your family that you hope to pass down to your, to the family that follows you. And it was one of the most moving Seders that we had, because we had one of my daughter's teachers at the Jewish day school was Filipino, and she brought something from her family. And other people brought a Jewish thing, candlesticks, or, other things. And I didn't grow up Jewish, so I had something else that I brought from my family. But it was a way to connect with holiness. And so that's how I felt the sama, I'm thirsting for God, and that being connected to God through a thing. That could just give you a walking stick, of all things, mate, the stick, the staff that, we walk with God. So I wanted a lot of silence today, Mark, so I didn't go into as much detail.
Yeah,
and I was hoping you would ask me this question.
Okay, good. Yeah,
So,
I mean, please don't take it in any way as a critique. I just was going with the flow there. And the other thing about that midrash that was really, I'm not sure, maybe I heard it. I don't remember having heard that or studied that midrash. It's got that King Arthur kind of quality to it, right? That it took Moses to identify and make use of it in some way. So there was and if we can embody that practice a little bit too and take it into ourselves, might think about that staff as the staff is this is representation of support, of power, of strength internally, maybe, that we can also draw upon and be aware that we have that staff, and that is a source of wonders and strength. And somebody's asking about the about what are the signs that the staff does, and staff is at least the staff is instrumental in the announcement of the plagues to Pharaoh, of course.
Right.
And then at the crossing of the sea, the staff plays a role too.
Right. Holding the staff up, opens up the sea.
Yeah.
And so also the bringing the water, when he strikes the rock, instead of believing that God will bring the water, he actually strikes the rock with his staff. So the staff comes back several times in Moses's lifetime, sometimes difficult times. Right.
It's a blessing. It's a mixed bag. It's a blessing, and turns out also can be a curse, representing that power. The other thing is, I guess what I'm thinking is that, I'm not asking you to neatly tie together all these metaphors, but you offered us a variety of metaphors, including thirst, with the psalm and the chant, which, by the way, if you'll take us out in a moment again with the nigun for that psalm, that would be wonderful. Be nice to sit with that for another minute, about the thirsting of the soul and its connection with I associate this Torah portion, the beginning of the book of the thing that really cracks the narrative open, because it starts in in this kind of darkness, right? But what cracks things open is the crying out of the Israelites under bondage, which reaches up to God, as it were, and awakens something. So the yearning, the kind of sense of the status quo cannot stand, and the desire to to let things be different than the way they are, starts the ball rolling, I think, towards redemption. And the thirst for the spiritual thirst, the thirst for freedom, mixed in with the rod, alongside that, to me is powerful. And a little bit ironic that it winds up being Moses' downfall, to strike the rock to bring out water. Spoiler alert, by the way, for those who not read ahead. Strikes the rock with his staff, which turns out to be kind of his downfall. But I felt invited to hold multiple metaphors: yearning, sama nafshi, my soul thirst for you, God, right? So it's just a beautiful image to sit with.
I know we studied, Mark, with you and other Hevraya IJS folks the other day, the power of metaphor,
Right.
with Rabbi Tova Spitzer's book that's going to come out about God and metaphor. It's coming out in March. If you want to pre-order it, I did. But I think that idea of feeling the desire to be close to God in as thirst, as hunger, as just feeling it completely with body and soul, voice, heart, mind, eyes, ears. I know actually just saying those words reminded me of the moment when we go into the mikveh, walking down those 7 steps. The melody that I wrote for that talks about having God with us through our eyes and our ears and our hands and our feet and our heart and our mind and our soul, and each of those steps down into the water, and submerging under the water and feeling God's presence in that room, in so many places, makom, so many places that we feel God's presence. So I think there may be a lot of questions. I haven't been keeping track, Mark. I don't know if you have.
I'm taking a look. Yeah. Can you comment on the significance of the staff being one of the items created at the final moments of creation? That's from Julie Cole.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I think we could come up with a lot of wonderful stories about that. I mean, that Adam needed a staff to help him walk in the garden. I haven't thought about that. It is a good question, and I will ponder it. Thank you, Julie.
I mean, I guess I'm thinking, when we think mythologically about those things, the items that were, according to tradition, created either as part of creation or primordial, predated creation in some way, I always take it as just representing some latent quality in us and in the universe. So that's how I take if you want to be a real literalist, you say what's the mata? It's this, what did it look like and what was it made of, and the literal thing. But I much prefer to go into the symbolic and say, what does that represent? That there is this latent power and capacity that is within, that's embedded within creation and embedded within us in some way. So that's how I guess I would take that. That, in other words, kind of what you're saying is that we couldn't manage without it. Really, it needed to be created because we couldn't manage without it. We really need that sense of something that we can lean on, that can support us, that can direct us, that can be a conduit for wonders that keep hope alive when we're really struggling with that, as many of us are these days.
Yes.
For a whole range of reasons. So thanks for the question, Julie. I'm just going to take another look. But you know what? We got 2 minutes. Louise. I don't think there's any pressing questions in my editorial view. So how about if we use those 2 minutes just to come back to the chant of Sama Nafshio. I'm happy to share the words on the screen, and I just want to invite everybody to rest in the melody this is really just like a beautiful, beautiful, it's just a beautiful melody. It's a beautiful passage, and a beautiful, beautiful translation by Rabbi Richard Levy of blessed memory. To have visions, to experience a sense, the power and the glory, the idea that the life breath in me thirsts for you, God, and my flesh grows faint. Why don't we sit with that? Thanks for taking this out.
And I love the idea of chaziticha, the chaza, the vision, seeing. Ken ba'kodesh chaziticha lir'ot uscha uchvodecha. Ken ba'kodesh chaziticha lir'ot uscha uchvodecha. Tzama, 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 tzama lecha nafshi. Kama, 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 kama lecha v'sani.
Thank you so much, Louise. As always, it's just always lovely. Thanks for entering us into the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot, the journey towards redemption. May it begin, may it be true in our time as well and among us. And thanks for that beautiful blessing too from Alden Salavi. So thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Adi. Thanks, Louise. And most of all, thanks all of you for being here. It's always wonderful to gather for practice together. We hope to see you tomorrow for practice with Cantor, Spencer Shapiro. Blessings, everyone.